14/100ths of a second. That was the gap between first place and second place at the 2019 Diamond League in London. On a results board, it looks like a tight race. In slow motion, it looks like a different sport entirely. The women's 100 meters at the anniversary games that July brought together one of the deepest sprint fields of the season. Dina Asher-Smith, running in front of her home crowd. Marie-Josée Talou, one of the most dangerous late-race sprinters on the circuit. A full complement of global-level finalists, all in form, all competing for Diamond League points with the World Championships in Doha less than 3 months away. And then there was Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce, multiple Olympic champion, multiple world champion. Back on the track in 2019 after maternity leave, carrying a question the sprint world had not yet answered. Was the return genuine, or was she running on the credit of a career already built? London answered that question, but not in the way most viewers realized while watching it happen. The margin of victory was built not at the finish line, not in the final sprint for the tape, but in the opening seconds of the race, in a phase most cameras barely capture and most commentary never addresses. What Fraser-Pryce did in the first 30 meters of this race is a case study in acceleration mechanics at the highest level. The numbers are specific, the mechanism is explainable, and once you see it, you cannot watch a 100-meter final without looking for it. Watch closely from the gun. Pay attention to what happens before anyone reaches top speed.
Disse 9 som står klar for finalen på 100 meter også. Det blir et skikkelig prestisjeoppgjør. Her de beste av de beste, og alle, jeg skal ikke si alle på tribunen, men de fleste på tribunen håper da på at Dina Asher-Smith skal kunne ta hjem dette her, og hun løp 10:91 og vant sin semifinale. Får vi se om hun kan sette Fraser-Pryce på plass. 10:95 hadde Fraser-Pryce i sin semifinale. Men Talou skal vi ikke se bort fra. Okagbare har vært veldig bra. Muriel og Re i gang igjen. Dina er lykken kjemper. Bronsemedaljevinner på 200 meter i EM for noen år siden. Har 3 EM-medaljer nå. Lykken kjemper. 10:95 som pers fra denne starten. Michelle Li-Ai. 6 i Rio på denne øvelsen i OL der. 5 som beste VM-plassering. Daphne Skippers. VM selv som best på denne øvelsen. Traff ikke helt i semifinalen Skippers, bare 11:15 og gikk videre på tid. Tatjana Pinto, en av de største overraskelsene i semifinalen. 11:12 og andreplass i sitt heat. Merket seg mest egentlig på stafette for Tyskland så langt i karrieren. Her Marie-Josée Talou, 10:96 i sin semifinale, vant altså på Stanford. 10:93 i år. Kanskje må han løpe fortere enn det nå for å slå Fraser-Pryce, som løp ganske avslappet inn til 10:95. 10:74 da i Lausanne for 2 uker siden i sitt forrige løp. En annen utenfor britenes store yndling. Får høre applausen nå for Dina Asher-Smith. Det høyeste vi har hørt i dag under presentasjon. 10:91. Kopi av årsbeste i semifinalen. 10:85 er hennes personrekord. Her Muriel Ahoré. Tok 2 sølv under VM i 2013 i Moskva. 11:15 gjorde hun i sin semifinale her. Og så i den ytterste banen Blessing Okagbare, som løp 11:10 i sin semifinale. Født i Nigeria. Hun har bodd en god del i USA. Asher-Smith mot Fraser-Pryce.
Ja, ingen av dem spesielt pressa i heata da, tidligere i dag. Fraser-Pryce 10:95 der, og Asher-Smith 10:91.
Fraser-Pryce med 5 globale titler på 100 meter, mens Asher Smith aldri har tatt medalje i VM. Hun up and coming, har lyst til å overta sprinttronen, som Fraser-Pryce har vært i nærheten av siden OL i 2008. Ja, så det 20-start. Og hvem var det? Det var Daphne Skippers, det. Som 8 tusendeler for tidlig ute her. Får vi se hva bildene viser. Her bildet av Daphne Skippers. Reaksjonstid 0,092.
Hadde en svært dårlig start i forsøket sitt. Og er nok opptatt av å rette opp den fasen av løpet. Kanskje å bli litt for ivrig med tanke på det da.
Veldig nære at det blir en kanonstart. I stedet kan det bli rødt kort og rett ut.
0,092 er nært å være på rett side av den
Ja, får beskjed. Det ropes fra starteren, og man med det røde kortet rekker ikke en gang bort til bane 3 før Skippers av banen. Det var ny rekord det, å gå av banen. Profesjonell utøver, skjønner hva som gjelder. Ikke spesielt fornøyd da. Det skjønner vi.
Nei.
Årsbeste i sine 2 siste starter nå rett ut etter en svak semifinale.
Verdens raskeste mor da. Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce, 32 år, mot ungdommen. Dina Asher Smith, 23 år gammel. Kan Marie-José Talou være med og presse dem helt inn?
Der det gårde. Strålende start på Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce, som stikker av gårde fra Dina Asher Smith umiddelbart, og bare feier av gårde mot en kanontid og mot en prestisjeseier. Det her går fryktelig unna. 10,77! Oi, 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 hun ga ikke Dina Asher Smith en sjanse i det hele tatt. Bang! Og så var hun av gårde og holdt hele veien inn.
Så komfortabel ut Fraser-Pryce på 10,95 i forsøket sitt. Gikk nok ikke for fullt helt inn heller der, men her har hun virkelig bestemt seg fra start. Her skal hun vise ungjentene hvem det som bestemmer på sprint.
Offisielt 10,78. 10,92 og svakere enn i semifinalen på Asher Smith. Talou får 10,98, og Kagware setter årsbeste. Lykken Kemper også med årsbeste her. Du verden, og hun treffer her.
En ny supertid da.
Enorm akselerasjonsfase. Blir nok litt satt ut av det, Asher Smith. Klarer nok ikke å løpe like avslappet og godt teknisk.
Nei, det er lett å bli stresset når du merker at du er så på etterskudd fra start. Kanskje litt dårlig utgang av blokka, Asher Smith, og heller ikke god på akselerasjonen de første 20 meter. Blir litt anstrengt av det. Det Talou som nummer 3 da, igjen. Så Lykken Kemper, som du sier, 11,14 bedre enn Tatjana Pinto, beste tyske jente Lykken Kemper. Pinto som hadde fantastiske 11,12 i forsøket, bare i mål på 11,28 og sist.
Det er jamaikanerne som favoritter i VM akkurat nå, Elaine Thompson, og denne løperen her, Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce, stabil nå, på 10,7. Helt annet nivå enn vi så i fjor. 1 år til med trening, og det hjelper selvfølgelig etter fødselen.
Da mye prestige i det løpet her, tror jeg Fraser-Pryce det her.
10.78 seconds. That is the number that ended the debate. Not the fastest time ever run in London, not a world record. But in the context of 2019, that single clock mark told a story pure statistics rarely capture. the full restoration of the most complete sprinter of her generation. Watch what happens in the first 40 meters of this race. Not the finish line, not the final lean, the first 40 meters. That is where the race was decided, and if you blink, you will miss exactly why. Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce came to London's anniversary games in July 2019, carrying a question mark no Diamond League title could fully erase. She had taken maternity leave. She had rebuilt her body. And the sprinting world, politely and otherwise, was watching to see whether her mechanics had survived the interruption intact. The answer she delivered that evening was not polite at all. Fraser-Pryce posted a reaction, time of 0.131 seconds off the blocks. Sharp, but not exceptional by her historical standards. What followed was, her drive phase was controlled and geometrically precise. Her torso angle through the first 15 meters stayed around 30 degrees from vertical, generating maximum horizontal displacement per stride rather than wasting force pushing upward. Her ground contact time in this early phase measured approximately 0.145 seconds per step, consistent with elite acceleration profiles. Every newton of force went forward. By the 30-meter mark, she had already put roughly 2 meters on Dina Asher-Smith to her right. That gap does not look dramatic on screen, but at this level, 2 meters at 30 meters is nearly insurmountable. Asher-Smith ran well. That needs to be said clearly. Her final time of 10.92 on home soil represented genuine competitive form and technically sound mechanics through the transition phase, around 40 to 60 meters, where she maintained strong knee drive and minimal lateral deviation. But she entered that transition phase already chasing. And chasing at maximum velocity is a fundamentally different physiological state than leading at it. The muscular recruitment patterns differ. The neurological cost is higher. Asher-Smith was forced into a race shape Fraser-Pryce was never in. Most people assume the 100 meters is decided at top speed, in that 60 to 80 meter window where every sprinter is operating near their ceiling. It is not. Top speed is a consequence of the acceleration phase, not an independent variable. Fraser-Pryce's peak velocity in London sat in the range of 10.9 meters per second, between 60 and 70 meters. World-class, but not historically unusual. What separated her was that she arrived at top speed, already holding a margin she only needed to protect, not extend. Here is what makes her mechanics genuinely unusual. Through the final 20 meters, where many sprinters begin to tighten, shoulders rising, jaw clenching, stride length shortening under fatigue. Fraser-Pryce stayed visibly relaxed. Facial muscles loose, shoulders low. Stride frequency held at approximately 4.7 steps per second through the closing stretch. The mechanical efficiency of her deceleration phase was, in a real sense, as impressive as her acceleration. She did not win by fighting the finish line. She arrived at it. One detail that stuck with me when reviewing this race. She crossed the line with what can only be described as surplus. No maximal exertion visible in those final strides, which raises a question worth sitting with. If 10.78 was not a full effort, what was she actually capable of that season? The answer came 3 months later in Doha. World Championship gold. But London was the proof of concept. Marie-Josée Tallou finished third in 10.98. Her race illustrates the tactical consequence of Fraser-Pryce's early dominance from a different angle. Tallou is a mid-race and late-race sprinter by profile. Her competitive speed endurance through 80 to 100 meters is genuinely elite. In a race where the front was decided at 40 meters, that strength became largely irrelevant. She was running a different race to a different clock, and the gap of 0.20 seconds to first place reflected not an inferior athlete, but an incompatible race shape for the conditions Fraser-Pryce had imposed. The wind reading was plus 0.3 meters per second. Legal, minimal, essentially neutral. The 10.78 was clean. In her broader seasonal progression, it placed her trajectory exactly where a championship peaking plan would want it, fast enough to signal readiness, controlled enough to suggest she had not yet reached her ceiling. Here is the take that will probably get pushback. The narrative around comeback athletes in sprinting is almost always framed around resilience and inspiration, and those framings, while genuine, tend to obscure the technical question. The real story of Fraser-Pryce's return was not emotional. It was mechanical. Her drive phase geometry came back. Her stride frequency came back. Her relaxation under pressure came back. The inspiration is real, but what actually won races in London was kinematics, not motivation. The margin between first and second, 10.78 to 10.92, a gap of 0.14 seconds, looked modest on the results board. At elite level, 0.14 seconds in the 100 meters maps to roughly 1.5 meters of distance. That is not a close race. That is a controlled performance against a world-class field. What this race demonstrated, technically and competitively, is that experience and refined mechanics stay decisive even as younger athletes emerge. Fraser-Pryce in 2019 was not running on reputation. She was running on a reconstructed and fully operational sprint model. What should you watch for in any future 100 meters at this level? Watch the 30-meter mark, not the finish. Watch whether the leader is extending a gap or defending one. Watch shoulder height in the final 20 meters. Relaxation there is not aesthetic, it is mechanical efficiency made visible. And watch reaction time not as an isolated number, but as the opening note of a drive phase that determines everything that follows. London 2019 was not a dramatic race. It was a precise one. And precision, at this level, is the more difficult achievement. If you want to see how this drive phase efficiency holds up under maximum pressure, the Doha World Championship final later that year shows exactly the same mechanical signature at higher stakes. That breakdown is coming. Subscribe so you do not miss it. Drop a like if this analysis gave you something new to look for, and leave a comment below. What aspect of sprint mechanics do you want broken down next?